Our regular council meeting for Tuesday, February 16th. Good evening, council, staff, guests, and the viewing public. We'll start with our roll call, and I'll ask Mr. Teixeira to do the roll call, please.
All right, Mayor Patterson.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Here.
Councillor Dickert.
Present.
Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Present.
Councillor Fleet.
Present.
Councillor Hawking.
Present.
And Councillor Cable.
Present.
Good. We're all here. Thank you, Brian. Item 3 is agenda additions or deletions. We do not have any. Item 4 is delegations, and we do not have any this evening. So we'll move on to item 5, which is
Your Worship.
Council. Yes.
I think we may have a disclosure of pecuniary interest. Okay. Sorry.
I'm skipping item 2. All right, good. Thank you for reminding me. Council, does anyone have a disclosure of pecuniary interest? Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to make a disclosure for item number 9.4 regarding the Bruce Gray Mentorship Cannabis Retail letter, as my partner is a director on the Bruce Gray Mentorship Board.
Thank you. And of course, if anyone else has disclosure and a conflict, if one should arise during the meeting, you may declare it then. Okay, item 5, Council and Committee of the Whole minutes. The first one, 5.1, is the regular council meeting from January the 11th. So I need a mover and seconder to put that on the floor. So I have Councillor Dickert and Councillor Fitzsimmons. So you'll remember that evening we approved the appointment of Mr. Peter Hambley to the Hanover Planning Advisory Committee. We also approved the 2021 budget status and safe restart phase 2 funding of $45,000. That was option 1. That money was going to be used to reduce the levy by $45,000. The overall tax increase is now 2.82 versus 3.45. And that money was for the COVID-19 expenses for 2021. We also approved the health and safety policy statement and the health and safety work plan and the violence and harassment policy for 2021. If there's any discussions or comments, questions, please let me know. If not, I'll ask if we're all in favor of this motion. That is carried. Thank you. That covers resolution 1221. Item 5.2 is the special meeting minutes from Saturday, January 16th. I need a mover and seconder to put that on the floor. Councillor Hawking and Councillor Cable. Thank you. You'll remember that special meeting on the Saturday, Dr. Era was present and the discussion was around establishing a mass vaccination hub. And we did direct staff to remove the ice and make the facility available for public health and pandemic response. And I understand it is well underway. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried, and that covers resolution 1321. Item 5.3 is another special council meeting minutes from January the 18th. And I need a mover and seconder to put that one on the floor. Councillor Hawking and Councillor Fleet, thank you. You'll remember that was our meeting for our growth management plan. We had Meridian Planning there, Nick McDonald, GM Blue Plan with Matt Fisher, Watson and Associates with Jamie Cook, and Fournier Consulting, Stephen Fournier. That was a good meeting. Lots of updates about where we're going with our growth strategy. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll ask the question. All in favor? That's carried, and that covers resolution 1421. Item 6 is staff reports. We do not have any. Item 7 is committees of council minutes. So we have 6 sets of minutes that we'll have one motion for. And I need a mover and a seconder to put those on the floor. Deputy Mayor Hicks and Councillor Dickert. So the first one, 7.1, is the Cultural Roundtable Committee minutes. There's two sets of those minutes, one from January 6th and the other one is February 3rd. And I'll ask Councillor Hocking to highlight any of those minutes. You're on mute, Dave.
Thank you. Thank you, Worship. I'm just going to refer to my notes. You probably have already picked this up, but our cultural roundtable minutes always start with roundtable updates. These include sort of information items from the various members who sit on our committee. I'd like to just to highlight number 4, which is our branding and attractions. It's referred to as HIP, Hanover's Innovative People Program, and you will see more reference to that in the next, the following set of minutes. We reviewed we're actually, the first set of minutes, we're planning the cultural exchange virtual event and sort of getting things together. And our second meeting, we did a little review of it. The community events, of course, pertain to Family Day, and we talked a bit about the Artist Spotlight. Under the new business, April just provided an update on the theater. The Artist Guild has decided, and we all support that that we have to postpone our summer event. We were looking forward to the Plan Art Festival in sort of July or August, but under the current situation, we've decided to put that on hold. And then there was an update on the Snowbirds, which is June the 22nd. The following month, again, same idea, roundtable updates, a bit more on HIP. And what we're doing is we're going to have a presentation from Chris Hughes from BC Hughes at our EDC meeting on March the 17th. So he's going to present the strategy to both the Cultural Roundtable and to the EDC committee because they dovetail among each other. We did the summary, as I talked about. Interestingly, we had 851 views on Facebook for that event. There were 24 participants, including panelists, and April and Sherry did a great job in organizing the night. And thanks again to our MC and all the participants. Again, Family Day, which we have all experienced. And then April went through a bit of new business, talked about rural economic development funding, which is referred to under the acronym of RED, and provincial webinar that April was involved with MPP McLeod, Minister of Heritage. And I think the neat thing about this that she learned was instead of just giving it to funding to the big cultural groups in the cities, they're going to try and make sure that it's distributed fairly throughout the province of Ontario. So hopefully we will be eligible for some funding. And also under the RED funding, April talked about submitting a proposal to the RED for funding for the theater. So we have to wait and see. Do you want me to carry on with the economic development?
Are there any questions or comments before Councillor Hocking moves on? Seeing none, yes, Dave,
Okay.
please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you know, we meet the third Wednesday of every month in the morning, and we'll be meeting this Wednesday. Just a bit of highlights. Saugeen Connects plays a big role in our area, and there are some of the programs tied to it. And the community improvement plan, which we're all aware of, April highlighted that for the information to our committee members. We talked about our business retention expansion survey that's going to be going out if it hasn't already. It's sort of a unique venture with working with OMAFRA. and we're going to survey close to 60 businesses. There's again a reference to the rural economic development funding. And then we have updates. So we have the countywide update, we have a launchpad update, we have a chamber update, because the chamber sits on our committee. I always give an update on the Soggy Municipal Airport. And again, we're looking at, you know, an annual event, and we're hoping that our first major fundraiser would be in concert with the Snowbirds on June the 22nd. And then April shared the building stats, which we received in our last council, prepared by Brenda and Don. And the cultural exchange event, any feedback would be greatly appreciated on that one. And new business, Brian gave an update to all members regarding our town growth plan. They seem very, very excited and supportive of our initiative. And then the meeting was adjourned at 10:12. So I'm open to any questions.
I don't see any, but it's really good to hear that all that information is being exchanged with everyone. So the more we know, the better it is. So very good.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hawking. So item 7.3, this is the Hanover Heritage Committee minutes from January 21st. Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. These minutes have been a while coming. I've been a member of this committee since last April, and this is the first meeting they've had in 370 days. So it's been a little while. But in this particular case, throughout the pandemic, regardless, donations have been coming in quite heavily for items to be displayed in various ways. Patrick Switzer, of course, our world champion longboarder, has donated some items that he used during his world championship. And a very interesting donation came in of the original train sign from the Hanover station, which I think is incredibly cool. So the pandemic really hasn't slowed down the amount of donations for items for the archives. So that's a good thing. And of course, Larry Mercy's book is something that they're going to purchase and add to it as well. Something else that the Heritage Committee does kind of in conjunction is Al Morrow runs the Hanover Remembers Facebook site. And they've added over 400 members during the pandemic since it started. So a lot of interest, a lot of people at home looking for things to be involved in. And so that's really picking up some steam for that. So they have a thing called Windows in Time that basically is put into different merchants' windows about information about the building and previous businesses and things. That was going to be something they were going to do for Family Day, but because of the lockdown, they decided to postpone that until Canada Day, when hopefully we'll be able to, you know, have a little more interaction with the businesses. And obviously they were closed, and it was going to be hard to get a hold of people. And you know, it's not a big priority for them at the moment, unfortunately, given everything going on. One of the other things that the Heritage Committee is working on is they do a lot of recording of interesting people in Hanover that have a lot of stories to tell about the history of the community and things that have went on. So they're working their way through doing some people interviews, and they're going to continue to do those. And they go into the archives and get shown at various things. So they do a lot of interesting things, and I was glad to be at the meeting finally.
Good, thank you. Any comments or questions for Councillor Fitzsimmons? Okay, good, thank you. Item 7.4 is the Age-Friendly Advisory Committee minutes from January 26th. Councillor Dickert.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. Meeting highlights here. This was our first meeting since COVID struck last year, so it's been a year pretty much for that group to get together as well. And unfortunately, several members were not available, so we did not have quorum for the meeting and just spent our time basically reconnecting and discussing items for information. A couple of those items, there's an International Federation on Aging virtual conference in November. So we were given the information on that. The Grey Bruce Elder Abuse Prevention has launched an educational campaign to combat elder abuse. We reviewed an article from Grand River Council on Aging where they are teaching tech to seniors. They're using the youth in the area as instructors, and it was decided that we would contact Launchpad and see if there was any opportunities to explore a similar program in Hanover. So we'll see what kind of fruits we can get to bear from that. And the town has received a senior community grant, and these funds will be used to move forward with our seniors directory project, and we hope to have this completed and distributed by the end of March. If anyone has any content they think would be good for that directory, you could give Laura Kristen a call at Parks and Rec, and she would certainly welcome those calls, but it would have to be very soon, because if we're going to have it up and ready for the end of March, we have to keep moving forward. That's my report.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any questions or hands being raised. So item 7.5, Parks, Rec and Culture Advisory Committee minutes from January 27th. Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Parks, Rec and Culture Advisory Committee met on January 27th. If it's all right, I'm going to spend most of my time updating on item number 2, which is our delegation from Jim Sanders of Playcheck Services. And so as part of our efforts to look at developing a long-term strategy for our town parks, the committee felt that it would be valuable to understand the current shape of our park equipment. And so the hope is that by developing this strategy, which is part of our master plan work, we can do some long-term planning around future park upgrades, replacement of equipment or refurbishment needs, and potentially the development of that Center of Excellence Park, which is an idea that we've been talking about since the beginning of this council term. So Jim made a presentation on his business and his work in this field. So he reviewed his work history with the committee, including recent work with the municipality of South Bruce. And so if the committee determines that it's of benefit to proceed, Jim will conduct an analysis of all park equipment in the town of Hanover relative to the National Standard of Canada for children's play equipment. So his report would include a list of non-compliance as well as a hazard risk rating for all issues of non-compliance with our park equipment. So of course, I think learning about the trail bridges and the civic theater, I'm starting to become skeptical of these types of reports, but we can't be ignorant to some of these issues either. So Jim would go through, he would conduct these assessments on our park equipment and bring back a report to the Parks, Rec and Culture Advisory Committee, which I'm sure will also come to council. It's my understanding that, for example, in the municipality of South Bruce, there was a substantial list of non-compliance, and their council provided some flexibility by passing a motion to allow certain pieces of equipment to remain open based on their risk planning, based on their risk rating, as long as there was a plan in place for repairs and replacement going forward. So it's something that we're looking at as part of this long-term plan. And it's, I think, something that needs to be done just to kind of get an assessment of where we're at in terms of our park equipment, so that we can kind of make that longer-term plan before the end of this council term. So I'm sure that we'll see many more updates on this as we go forward. That was kind of the main item from our meeting. Other than that, we did briefly discuss the idea of the P&H Center and some of the sponsorship opportunities and things like that. But we know that it's also not the best time to be going out looking for sponsorships. So that's something that will be on hold.
Okay. Any discussion with those minutes? We look forward to what comes of that review. I don't want to look at some park and see nothing in it someday, though. So, okay, but safety is a priority. Item 7.6, this is the last set of minutes for this motion, the Planning Advisory Committee minutes, and Councillor Fleet, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Planning Advisory Committee met February the 9th. Chair Tim Noor will welcome Peter Hambley back as a committee member. Peter brings a wealth of knowledge back to the committee. And Tim also thanked Bruce Sickle for his years of service. I'll just highlight a few of these. Number 7, site plan agreement, Sibjat EULA This would be the old Queens Hotel property, 222 10th Street, Hanover. The development proposes a 6-story commercial and resident building with 1 level of underground parking. The building footprint will compass of 101,350 square feet, with a ground floor offering a retail, commercial unit, gym, party room, and other ancillary areas, garbage, moving area, electrical, and washing. The plan includes 5 stories of residential units and will feature approximately 18 units per floor for a total of 91, 2, and 3 bedroom units and accessible dwellings. Each floor offers locker spaces for the residential's use. The plan illustrates a total of 87 parking spaces, 30 surface spaces, and 57 spaces within the underground parking structure of the building. The town's heritage design of the surrounding area and the celebrate of cornerstone of our community. It really will fit into our downtown, brings a lot of our heritage into it. A traffic impact study starting that the traffic count does not accessible a left turn bay for both entrances on 10th Street and 7th Avenue. The timing of traffic lights will affect traffic flow to the site. County of Grey Transportation Services requested a right in and right out only on 10th Street. Stormwater management plan stating that the 3-meter difference in ground level across the site has been addressed with quantity and quality controls required to meet all design criteria. Catch basins will collect surface drainage, resulting in snow melt, and will not impact neighboring properties. The committee discussed the possibility to include a green roof, as the roof is a retention area together with a storm receptor to allow post flow for equal pre-flow for storm sewer. The Secretary Treasurer stated the proposed development conforms to the downtown commercial C1 regulations with comprehensive zoning bylaw 2912-15 in regards to parking, setbacks. Any deficiency in parking is allowed to be parking in lieu bylaw. The Planning Advisory Committee recommended to Council that the site plan prepared by Archer Incorporated on January 28th proceed to a site plan agreement for development of property known as 223 10th Street. Number 8, site plan agreement. This is John Hoffman and Eric Frey. They're sales representatives for Caldwell Bank Commercial out of Kitchener. They made a PowerPoint presentation on behalf of the owners. This is property east of the Canadian Tire store, 936 10th Street. They're offering a mix of commercial and residential uses, a future medical clinic, childcare, fitness center, and other commercial facilities, coffee shop, bank. The plan also offers lifestyle residential design and chancing a pond area with a bridge, walking trails, and sitting areas with approximately 300 to 350 units, each approximately 1,000 square feet in area. The existing commercial uses in the immediate areas such as Canadian Tire, Shoppers Drug Mart, LCBO, Walmart, etc., are all within walking distances. Johnny and Eric are marketing concept plan as a packaging be creating a lifestyle environment utilizing the entire property and will not develop individually. The proposal is targeting the developer for the 55 demographics. And then we discussed 11.2, which is the growth plan, and Brian did an overview of the plan to the committee and they're quite impressed. And that's all I got to report from planning. I'd take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Fleet. Any questions or comments? Councillor Hawking?
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to comment that I attended the meeting as a spectator, and I have to echo how professional that presentation was on the structure that's going to be built or hopefully be built at the Queens Hotel corner. It certainly will bring a breath of fresh air to that corner. It's been vacant for a long time, and the plans were well received, and they did an excellent job in their presentation. So I just want to make that comment.
Thank you. Any questions or other comments? I too attended that meeting, as did Councillor Cable, and I'm really glad I did, because as Councillor Hawking said, you know, the plans, to see the plans and go through them and have them be explained to each member was very good. So explains why we don't have a lot of questions right now. So, okay, so we do have a motion on the floor, and it is to receive the information in these 6 sets of minutes that were just reviewed and highlighted. And we are approving the recommendations contained in those minutes. So I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried, and that covers resolution 15-21. Thank you. So next up is our bylaws, number 8. And we have 3 bylaws this evening. I need a mover and seconder to put that on the floor. I have Councillor Fitzsimmons and Councillor Fleet, and I'll ask our clerk for the intent of the bylaws, please.
Okay, bylaw number 3145-21 is a bylaw of the town of Hanover to confirm the proceedings of the council of the corporation of the town of Hanover at its regular meeting held on January 11th, 2021, and special meetings held on January 16th and January 18th, 2021. Bylaw number 3146-21 is a bylaw to provide for interim tax levies for the year 2021 for the town of Hanover. And bylaw number 3147-21 being a bylaw to authorize the town of Hanover to collect the dedicated gas tax funds from the Ministry of Transportation.
Okay, thank you. So it's been moved and seconded that bylaw numbers 3145-21 through to 3147-21 be introduced, and that they be taken as read a first, second, and third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the corporation, and inserted in the bylaw book. Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, number 9 is correspondence requiring action. So the first one, 9.1, this is correspondence, an email from Wes Gray, and it is directing staff to participate in joint meetings to represent Wes Gray's interests. And Wes Gray Council appointed Councillor Hutchinson and Councillor Townsend to participate in future joint meetings. They also referred to a letter that will be coming to our council. So we need to appoint 2 people to this committee that will be meeting with Wes Gray, along with our consultants and our CAO. And I do have a resolution or a motion prepared, and I'll ask Vicki if you can share that while I read that, and then I will ask for a mover and seconder if you're in agreement. Thank you, Vicki. So it's a little lengthy, but very important that we do this correctly. So I'll start, whereas in June 2020, the Council of the Town of Hanover initiated a 4-stage restructuring engagement process involving consultations with the province and its immediate upper tier and local municipalities in order to meet its long-term growth planning and land supply needs. And whereas the process is designed to determine the willingness of its neighboring county and local municipalities to explore options and solutions beneficial to all participants in a manner consistent with all applicable provincial and municipal restructuring and planning policies. And whereas the town filed a phase 2, stages 1 to 3 preliminary report with the province and local MPPs in 2020, that documents the tasks and activities undertaken by the town, and to seek any advice or guidance on the options developed through this process. And whereas the municipality of Wes Gray and the town of Hanover held a joint meeting on January 22nd, 2021 to discuss the initiatives and approach undertaken by the town throughout the process. And whereas at a meeting on February 2nd, 2021, the Council of the Municipality of West Grey received a staff report on the outcomes of the joint staff meeting held on January 22nd, 2021. And as a result, further directed staff and appointed 2 members of council to represent its interests in all future joint meetings with the town of Hanover. And whereas the town of Hanover is committed to exploring all of its options with its neighboring municipalities in Bruce and Grey counties, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the town of Hanover hereby appoints Mayor Sue Patterson and Councillor Dave Hawking to attend with town staff all future joint meetings with the municipality of West Grey. That council directs the consulting team to complete the 4-stage process and file an addendum report after consulting with the municipality of West Grey for any additional advice and guidance from the provincial ministry and local MPP offices on the options identified through the process for council's further consideration. And further, that copies of this resolution be sent to the CAOs of Bruce and Grey counties and the municipalities of Brockton and West Grey for circulation to the mayors and all members of their respective councils. So that is the motion before you. We need a mover and seconder if you're in agreement with it to put it on the floor, and then we can discuss further or vote on it. So we have Councillor Cable moving it, and Vicky, I'll ask you to unshare the screen, and Councillor Dickert seconding that motion. Thanks, Vicky. Any discussion? Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the first part of what you're moving is joint meetings. Do we have a sense of how often these joint meetings are going to happen and how long the term for the joint meetings will be?
I do know we want them to happen very soon, but I'll ask Mr. Teixeira, what your thoughts? Have we talked to the consultants?
Yeah, so it's important to keep in mind that the assignment of Fernier Consulting is coming to an end. He will be with us for one further meeting with West Grey, and we'd like to schedule that within the next 2 weeks. And that will allow him to complete his report that will be submitted to the province as well as our MPPs. And then at that point, we'll have to decide how we're going to proceed with further negotiations or discussions. I think the first thing we have to find out from West Grey is if in fact they're interested or what they're interested in continuing to talk about. So that hopefully will be fleshed out at the next meeting, and we're going to go from there.
Thank you, Worship. And further, do we have any sense of what, if any, impact these joint meetings will have on our agenda moving forward? Timeline, I mean. In other words, the timeline that we had outlined originally, is that going to be impacted in any way by these joint meetings?
Your Worship, it's a fair question. There's a lot to be decided. And as far as timing goes, I think we've been very clear with all of the parties that we've gotten to the table and discussed our preliminary need and desire to move forward is that things have to happen fairly quickly. So with that in mind, we're certainly prepared to push forward as quickly as we can. But again, a lot of it is contingent on our partners and how prepared they are to move this to move both of our agendas forward. I really can't say what the timing is at this point, other than to continue to push forward as best we can.
We need to keep the momentum going. That's all we need to just keep doing it. Okay, Councillor Hawking,
Yes, in the motion, it says, and whereas the town of Hanover is committed to exploring all its options with neighboring municipalities in Bruce and Gray. So are we going to take a two-pronged approach to this issue, or are we just going to focus with West Gray now and then? Because I was pleased to see the willingness of Brockton to engage in this process, and I would hate to lose that momentum too. So I guess my question is, do we deal with both at the same time, Brian, or do we just deal with West Gray?
Well, Your Worship, I think that we've, through our engagement with Brockton, we have a sense that they're prepared or interested in continuing discussions. We're not there yet with West Gray. So I think the first step is to figure out where West Gray is with respect to their interests and their desire to move forward. If they're not, then I would think that discussions would be a little bit more focused on Brockton. However, one of the best options we've got is restructuring our boundaries to the east. So we can't lose sight of that. We'd like to move forward, as the resolution says, in a situation that benefits both municipalities. But it's going to be not only talking to the municipalities, but because we're in two different counties here, we also have to talk to two different counties. So there's a lot of moving parts, and it's not going to be simple. We have no illusions that it's going to be simple, but we will continue to move forward as best we can.
Yeah. I just want to echo the mayor's comments that we've got momentum on our side, and we need to push forward and be assertive.
and keep all options open.
Yes.
We'll look at them all. So, Councillor Dickert?
Yes, just comment on the second whereas, and I think it's so important to have this in there of finding options and solutions that are beneficial to all participants. And I think it's good to go into this with that in the back of our minds, that it does have to benefit everybody, and hopefully we can put a lot of past experiences behind us and keep those things off the table as we move forward. Thank you.
Good comment. So, any other comments? Okay, I will call the question. All in favor of the motion? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, item 9.2. This is a resolution from the town of the Blue Mountains, and it is referring to the assessment. They want to ensure that all parts of the county are properly and fully assessed. And they want to endorse a resolution that would have the county do an audit of the tax rolls of all the lower municipalities. So first of all, my question, and can I ask Chris Walker this, are we up to date or maybe that's not your role, but are we up to date with all our assessment and permits and?
Okay, assessment is done through Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, through MPAC. So they do all the assessments for all of Ontario and all of the County of Gray. So all of Gray County is put together, and that's what the county uses. However, as you add buildings and new permits and stuff, what you end up is with what's called supplementary assessment. And supplementary assessments are usually done when the buildings have been completed. So it usually takes 12 to 18 months to add like a brand new building put onto that. To give you an example, this past year in 2020, we did 45 supplementary assessments. 3 of those properties were from 2018, right at the end of the year of 2018. So that took almost 18 to 20 months to get that assessment. However, we also received 19 properties from 2019 that started about September 2019 when the buildings were done. So then they would go all the way back. So then they give them that assessment, and then the county is given that growth assessment you'll hear about. And then for 2020, there 23 properties have already been assessed and are already on the supplementary. So then all that assessment gets put together. So they get a base assessment, and then throughout the year, there's supplementary. And by the end of the year, when they go for the following year, that all total assessment gets put together. So what municipalities have to do is send information to MPAC, and we send ours on a monthly basis regarding all the building permits processed. And Brenda does that on behalf of the building department. And that triggers MPAC to know that there's a new building, to go and reassess that and do all these new assessments. Again, it takes 12 to 18 months to get the full assessment, because the building is put there on plain land, which is already assessed on the base. And then when you put a building on it, once it's all built, then they look at it and give the new assessment on it. So I can't speak for what the other municipalities do, but you're supposed to be sending building permits on a monthly basis to MPAC, so that triggers all this assessment. What you're getting from Blue Mountain is that our houses, say in Hanover, are worth 500,000. Theirs are worth 750. So they're paying to the county based on 750, where we're paying based on 500 for the exact same house. The only difference is their tax rate for their town portion is extremely lower than the town of Hanover's. To put that in perspective, I've got information for taxes for 2020. So for every $100,000 in assessment, you pay $364 at the Blue Mountains to the town, and to Hanover you pay $850. So we're paying 60% of all our taxes to the town, where they're only paying 41 or 42% to their town. But what the difference is, we only end up paying 26% to the county, where they're paying almost 41%. So they're paying a little bit more to there, because we're all paying the exact same tax rate to the county, and we're all paying the exact same tax rate to the education rate. So I did a real quick calculation on a town of Hanover house at 500,000. That property would pay almost $6,800 to the town of Hanover for the Hanover, the county, and the school boards. You take that same house in Blue Mountains at 750,000. They're actually still paying less for that house that's worth $250,000 more. Total taxes of $6,554. So they're still paying $241 less than the town of Hanover, but the problem is the split that they spend to the town and the county is different. Theirs is like 41-41, exact same, whereas the town of Hanover is 62-26 because of that. So that's where the assessment comes into play. You can't have a large assessment base and not pick and choose how you're going to pay the funds. They would pay more to the school board, even though that's the same tax rate, because their taxes are 750,000 assessment versus 500. So that's it, kind of in a nutshell. They have a higher assessment tax base, so they pay more to the county. But the house itself, they pay less overall, if that helps you at all.
And we are not behind. We are not lagging on ours.
No.
So for the county, they're asking the county to do this. How would that affect the county?
Well, the county would have to ask for someone to go and take a look at the actual tax roll and see where is assessment not on the roll that should be there. They would have to go through each municipality. I have no doubts that our assessment is being put there, but we're at the mercy of MPAC when they actually add that assessment. But we notify them on a monthly basis of every new building that comes in play. Maybe the other municipalities are not. I don't know all that.
Okay. Thanks, Chris. Good explanation. All right, let's start. Councillor Hawking, then Councillor Cable.
Yes, this question, thank you, Your Worship. This question is to Chris. And Chris, what would the purpose of the audit would be? Is it to try and pick out unfair practices between municipalities?
No, it's probably trying to look at some assessment that maybe has been missed, that maybe has been, I don't know, I'm just grasping at straws what they're actually looking for. It could be sitting as exempt and it actually should be commercial, or it should be residential. And they're saying right now on their books, it's exempt. So there's no taxes being charged against it. Or they're going to say this building is not really commercial, it's actually industrial, and which would be a higher tax rate, those kind of things that they would look at, and whether it's actual farmland or not.
It seems like it's a big job though, is it?
Well, the MPAC is, all the assessment is based on 2016 right now. So like your place would be worth on January 1st, 2016. So they're all even across the board. It's just, are they missing? Is there a property that just basically right now assessed as land and there's been a building on it for 4 years and nobody said anything about it? Because you know, if you have a building and you had a fire and it broke and it went down, if you didn't tell anybody, you'd still be getting billed based on having a building there. Whereas the minute you knew you had a fire and there was no building, you would put in a request to remove that assessment. So they're just asking for the other way around.
I got you. Okay, thanks.
That's up to the county, because the county has to take our assessment, Blue Mountains and all the lower tiers together to come up with their assessment base.
Right.
It just so happens they're a small municipality with a huge, huge assessment base. Compared to us.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Worship. No, I think Chris already answered my question. My question was around how often we submit to MPAC, how we're keeping track of the rolls. So I think my question's answered.
Okay, good. Any other comments? Deputy Mayor Hicks.
I'm squarely wearing my Town of Hanover hat, just trying to remind myself here. Look, the Town of Blue Mountains went through this exercise on their own, and they found quite a bit of money missing. That says to me that something didn't get done by someone somewhere at some time, and they were playing catch up. I know that we don't have the same issue here in the Town of Hanover, and I can't speak for the other municipalities, but I do know two things. One, that the CAOs meet regularly throughout the County of Grey, and this issue probably has been raised there and could be raised there again. And secondly, is my understanding that the treasurers throughout the County of Grey meet fairly regularly as well, and I would think that they would be interested in this sort of thing, and this topic could come up there as well. So I believe there already are mechanisms for Town of Blue Mountains to say, quite rightfully, look, here's what we've been able to find, and the more money we find, the better everyone is. So there's no ill intent here with this motion, nothing wrong with it. It says there may be money out there and you could possibly find it just like we did. I don't know that we need to have the county take on an audit process to do what I think they're trying to achieve. They did it on their own. They didn't need to have the county come in and audit. I see no reason why the other lower tier municipalities can't do the same if need be. I see Chris waving her hand, so she probably has something to say based on what I just said.
Okay.
It is my understanding, Your Worship, that the Town of Blue Mountains hired a consultant to do all that for them. So they basically wanted all the lower tiers to pay that money. Most of the lower tiers don't have that kind of money because they have a bigger assessment base. They have a lot more money to pull from, and they hired an outside person to do that. And they also have 2 to 3 times the staff as most other municipalities for all their stuff to do. Just so you have an idea, they have done this in the past, and they wanted all the other municipalities at a treasurer meeting to go out and do that. And they all said, no, we're not hiring somebody outside the Blues. We have MTE that you pay through the county as it is now. They should be able to do something like that if you really wanted it to be done that way.
Okay. Good discussion. So your thoughts about this resolution, do we want to support it? Note and file, or I'm seeing nodding heads for note and file, I believe. So, all right, we're in agreement. We'll just note and file that. Thank you very much. Good discussion. Item 9.3, this is a resolution from the Township of Baldwin, which I had to look up, north of Espanola. And they're asking the province to reconsider the closing of the Ontario Fire College in Gravenhurst. And I'd like to ask our fire chief, Chief Deniger, is this going to affect us, and how do you feel about it? Should we throw our weight behind it to support it, or are you okay in your training?
Thank you, Your Worship. If council would humor me, I'd like to give you some background on the situation very quickly. So the Ontario Fire College opened in 1949 With a switch to NFPA in 2014, the Fire College provided certification training, which was new to Ontario at that time. The cost to send a student for a week-long course is estimated by the province at $1,300. This includes classes, lodgings, and food. So the fire department only had to pay $65 for the course fee, the wage of the firefighter, and mileage, if it was so necessary. A lot of fire departments have pickup trucks that can be used for this purpose. So the province has come out with the notification of the closure of the Fire College, indicating that regional training centers are now going to be supported instead of one college location. These regional training centers are throughout Ontario. We actually have one in Grey County that we run together. All the fire departments, the chiefs have supported this. There's also a new one that's been announced in Brockton. Right now, Hanover Fire has over 62 NFPA certifications. 20 more are planned for 2021. The change to the regional training centers means that a municipality will now bear the entire cost of training. So there is no fire college to send people to, and they pay for lodgings and food and classes. The course costs are expected to vary between regional training centers because there is no clear identification from the province as far as what the expectations are. The Grey County Regional Training Center, because it's run by the chief's officers, is run on a cost recovery basis. The real problem becomes higher level and specialized courses. So the Regional Training Center here in Grey County, we've done a really good job of making sure that our firefighter 1s and 2s and our officer 1s and our instructor 1s and our pump operators are taken care of. But if a department needs ice water training, a higher level officer training, inspector or investigator courses, they're going to be hard to find because not every department in Grey County needs to run those courses. So you're going to have to send firefighters away and pay for their lodgings and pay for their food, and that's really going to add up. And so that becomes the significant problem. So I hope I've helped kind of with some of the background. The province has been very clear that this is a done deal. Staff have already been advised. Notices have gone to staff about their positions and relocation to Toronto. And while I think there is a benefit for the fire college, I'm not sure there's anything we can do at this point. The regional training centers are good. There is a need for them, but it's those higher level courses that we're most concerned about.
Okay, good information. Thank you. Questions or comments and thoughts about this resolution? Again, do we support it? Do we note and file? Do we have other options, whether we have delegations going to AMO or some of the other conferences? Requesting support, Councillor Dickert.
Well, based on the, thank you, Your Worship. Based on the explanation that Chief Denninger is giving us, I think it merits our support. Whether it can change anything or not, I think it's, if anything, it sends the message that we are experiencing challenges when they make these kind of moves, and perhaps sets a message that they would do more investigation before doing things like that in the future. So I personally think there's no harm in sending us and supporting this and letting them know where we stand on it.
Thank you. Councillor Hawking, then Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too support Warren's suggestion. I think this is an example of smaller municipalities getting hit because as Chief Denninger has indicated, smaller municipalities can't offer all of the specific courses that are required. Again, I think it's a little unfair to the northern communities or smaller rural communities that have to now assume the responsibility for all the training. So voice my support for the letter, even though it might be a done deal.
Thank you. Councillor Cable?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would also support the resolution. I think this is an example of the province downloading costs onto the municipalities that now will have to pay higher fees than we did previously. And I think that the be it resolved statement from the Township of Baldwin is simply that the province reconsider closing, and so we can support that and send that on to the province.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Hicks?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't hear the chief saying that that the regional training centers are not a good idea. I think if I'm interpreting what he has said, I think I heard him say the regional training centers have their positives, but closing this center also is a negative because of some of the courses that might not be readily available in a regional model. So really, it seems that we might be advocating for some kind of a hybrid, that there's a place for this facility as well as a place for the regional plan. If I'm wrong in that, Chief, correct me.
Thank you, Your Worship. You're not wrong. I think there is a value in the regional training centers. We can offer courses that are close to home. Our firefighters can be home at night and not have to travel to Gravenhurst. And we can offer courses on weekends that there's some flexibility there for the regionals to operate based on the need of the departments that it services. However, there are courses that I agree with that it's going to be very challenging for the regional training centers to offer because there isn't the same need in each area.
Thank you. Councillor Hocking?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for my own edification, Chief, were these regional centers set up as a result of you folks hearing about the pending closing of the fire college, or did it just happen spontaneously that you thought a regional approach was a good thing?
Thank you for the question. So this I'm going to say 3 or 4 years ago, the province started to open up the opportunity and option for regional training centers, and Grey County, the chiefs in Grey County saw this as an opportunity. And so I think we've been operating for a couple of years now. We've offered a number of courses, which are continuing to grow and find, what's working, what's not working. But the Grey County chiefs were thinking ahead, saying this is something that would really benefit our firefighters. But at the time, this wasn't on our radar. This was on no one's radar. This was a shock to everyone.
Okay. Councillor Fleet?
Thank you, Your Worship. I agree with Councillor Cable. I think the province is downloading the costs onto the municipalities to send these people away for the training. And I have to support, this resolution because it's just, it's a shame to see Gravenhurst be shut down when, firefighters are volunteers, a lot of them, and they put their time and their life on the line. And so I have to support it.
Thank you. Okay. I'm hearing that the majority of council believes we should support this, so I'm going to ask for a mover and a seconder. So I see Councillor Dickert and Councillor Hocking. And any further discussion? All in favor that we support this resolution? That is carried. Thank you. Item 9.4, this is email correspondence from the Bruce Gray Mentorship. And they are referring to a cannabis retail store that is going to be located adjacent to their building. So they are a program, Bruce Gray Mentorship is a program for vulnerable and at-risk children and youth. They provide support through positive mentoring and group programs. Their building is a safe space for children, and they guide children away from the influences of negative and antisocial activities. Their focus is on positive mental health, social skill development, and building self-esteem. They are not in favor of a retail cannabis store locating beside them. So Mr. Teixeira, I'll ask, can you comment on this? I do have a motion prepared, but I'd like Mr. Teixeira to make some comments about the process on objecting to this if council is in agreement.
Thank you, Worship. So based on the IAGCO's website, this application for cannabis retail store is in progress. So that basically means that the AGCO has received the application and they're currently processing the application. At this point, no public comment is being invited. You have to wait until it's given its public notice, at which point written submissions will be accepted for the location until a date that's listed. And it's they're usually 15-day public notice periods, and only a resident of the municipality in which the store is going to be located or the municipality itself can comment. Back in January 2019, I brought a report forward to council outlining the process for opting in and opting out. At that time, council chose to opt in to allow cannabis retail stores in Hanover, primarily in the C1 and C2 zone, because of space requirements in those two zones. So this particular location is in our C1 zone. So it's within the commercial zone that council wants to see them. According to the act, the Cannabis Licensing Act, you can only, once you opt in, you can only oppose an application if you feel that it's contrary to the public interest. And that public interest is defined in the legislation under section 10X of the Act. It says only the following matters are matters of public interest. Number one, protecting public health and safety. Number two, protecting youth and restricting their access to cannabis. Number three, preventing illicit activities in relation to cannabis. So if council feels that this particular location or application is contrary to the public interest, using those broadly defined definitions of public interest, the municipality can, once the public posting period has been listed, submit a letter opposing this particular location. So that's kind of it.
Good, thank you, Brian. The reason why I have a motion prepared is that if those 15 days, if that opens up and we don't have a meeting in time, we would miss including that motion with our letter. So I'm not sure whether you want me to read the motion or do you want discussion first? Any comments? Okay, Councillor Fitzsimmons, then Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think there's no question that this is in the community's best interest to protect our youth in this case and to oppose this location in particular. It's obviously a legal business, it's legal Ontario, but I don't think it's in our best interest as a community to have it right next door to this at-risk youth opportunity right there. So I definitely oppose this.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzsimmons. Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. I oppose it to two doors down. We have Community Living Heart, and I wouldn't want to see any of their clients subject to this location. So I'm totally for it.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to suggest that you read the motion in. Let's get it on the table because I have a sense of where this is going.
Okay, thank you. Okay, whereas cannabis Whereas a cannabis retail store authorization application at 513 11th Avenue in Hanover is in progress, and whereas this application is immediately adjacent to the Bruce Gray Mentorship Clubhouse at 517 11th Avenue in Hanover, and whereas Bruce Gray Mentorship services children and youth from the ages of 6 to 16 who are in need or a positive mentor, and whereas the clubhouse, that's their nickname, is a 1,000 square feet of space featuring a large activity table, couch and chairs, art center, foosball table, games and activities, sports equipment, and a yard with a basketball net and a community garden. And whereas the clubhouse is a safe space for kids and teens to interact and spend time with mentors, explore their creativity, learn some skills, and develop confidence and self-esteem. Now therefore be it resolved that Council of the Town of Hanover is of the opinion that a cannabis retail store authorization located at 513 11th Avenue is not in the public interest as defined in Ontario Regulation 468-18, the Cannabis Licensing Act, and further that the Town of Hanover write a letter to the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario indicating its opposition to this retail store authorization application when public notice has been given. Bruce Gray Mentorship has good information on their website. Before we continue, I'll ask for a mover and seconder of this. So I think we'll start Councillor Fitzsimmons to move it and Councillor Fleet to second it. And then we'll have discussion, and Mr. Tedford has a comment before we get into the nitty-gritty.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I do support 100% that with the youth center being there and being actively at that location, that yes, even the provincial, when they do the circulation, that everybody needs to follow up, including council. But here's my problem is that we have 2 other locations in town that are currently going through the process, and they've survived the public notice and all that other stuff. What if a youth center moved in beside them now after they get their center open? And I don't know how much anybody really realizes. Talk to the current owners of these facilities. It's tens of thousands of dollars that they need to put out to have these places approved, and rules to no end on how they have to. And yet there's nothing to protect them now from a youth center moving in beside them and somehow creating this opposite effect. Now, I'm hoping that won't happen, but that's sometimes a game that's played. And just I wanted to make a comment that I do support that they not be a youth center or any kind of youth activity beside a cannabis or an LCBO or a beer store. Just my comments.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Hawking, then Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm totally in support of the motion, but obviously this proprietor has spent money getting this facility ready. Am I correct?
Mr. Teixeira, would it go that far yet?
No, it wouldn't be that far yet. He won't be investing a ton of money into this until it passes the public notice period.
Oh, good.
And
But,
actually,
I'm just sorry.
I can confirm that because I walk by there almost every day and there's been nothing done in there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, but on the back end, legal, business setting up, stuff like that, I don't know how far they've gone down that road because there would be some expenses associated with that for sure.
My other question is, we didn't become aware of this until a concerned citizen notified us. Is that correct?
We don't, Your Worship, I can answer that. We don't receive notice if there's an application in progress. We don't even receive notice if there's a public posting period. You have to watch it. So there's 2 ways that they post. They put it on the website, and they also have to put a placard on the front door of the premises. So unless you notice that, we don't get direct notifications. However, unless you subscribe, and I've subscribed, so I do get the notices. And I believe I've notified council in the past when the other two stores were at the public notice period. But this one has not reached that point yet. So you got to kind of watch it.
Yeah, okay. That's my point. I'm glad you're doing that, Brian.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Hicks and then Mr. Tedford.
Your Worship, I think Mr. Tedford had something with respect to Councillor Hawkins' comments.
I just wanted to comment that I don't even think the gentleman owns the property yet. He's buying it with the option of being able to put a second floor on it. And he had not indicated to me what the first floor was going to be used for. So this is very early, as Brian has indicated. There's very little investment. It's just one of these kicking tires right now. Just to let you know on the cost.
Okay, thanks, Don. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I too am in support of the motion. Mr. Tedford made some comments about, a youth center or youth club coming to decide. So here's the difference. The youth center existed before the proposed cannabis location. If you're going to be putting a cannabis location in, I would hope that you do a little bit of research and know that you are going in, next door to a safe space for youth in the community. So that's the difference. Now, if the place were established and a youth center said, oh, we're looking for a building, geez, we're going to buy the building right next door to this existing cannabis retail location, then I would say they would be equally wrong, because that cannabis location already existed. You might want to locate someplace else because they already exist. So I think that's the difference here in my view. So for those reasons, I'm in support of the motion.
Thank you. Okay, so good discussion. It's been moved by Councillor Fitzsimmons and seconded by Councillor Fleet, that motion that I read, that we will oppose when the public notice is up and the commenting period is within those 15 days, we will oppose. So that motion was prepared so that if we got caught between meetings, we're ready to go. So all in favor? That is carried. Good, thank you. Okay, 9.5, this is a resolution from the City of St. Catharines, and they are endorsing legislated sick leave, and they are calling on the government of Ontario to permanently legislate universal paid sick days for all workers in Ontario during the pandemic and beyond, regardless of workplace, size, type of work, or immigration status. So again, we can support this resolution, or we can note and file. So, discussion. Councillor Hawking.
I think this topic has received all kinds of press lately since COVID-19. And I just want to say personally, I'm in favor of this particular motion, requiring all essential workers to receive the benefits that other people get. These poor people who are forced to go to work because they don't have proper benefits are the very ones who are getting sick, and unfortunately, one of the reasons for our current situation. So I support St. Catharines.
Thank you. Other comments? So I take it, Councillor Hawking, you will move it. We need a seconder. Councillor Fitzsimmons, any further discussion? I also think it's a good idea that people have paid sick leave. That's a difference between going to work, getting better, not eating, paying for medication. So, Councillor Dickert, are you commenting?
Yes, please. Yes, Your Worship. Just in actually listening to some of the dialogue today, whereas the federal or the provincial government saying that this program is in place through the federal government. I'm not clear on what St. Catharines is really asking for here, because as I said, the dialogue today indicated that there are 10 days of paid sick leave in place based on the federal government. Is this in addition to that? Is it enhancing that? I'm not 100% sure what they're asking for. And for that reason, I do hesitate where we put our loyalty on.
I think St. Catharines is looking at during the pandemic and beyond, whereas the federal government is looking at during the pandemic, or maybe not even during the whole duration. I'm not sure. So, Councillor Hawking?
This is example of ping pong between two governments. And I think the Conservative government of the province of Ontario tries to couch the reason why they're not doing it by saying it's already funded by the federal government. I think there's different programs, and I think it also, you pointed out, it's beyond pandemic too. If you remember, the former Liberal government had some paid sick benefits, and the current government removed those upon their election. So I think we had 2 days before, but now they don't have any. So, well, I'm repeating myself, but St. Catharines is on the right wavelength.
Thank you. Councillor Dickert?
Well, would we be not better though supporting a motion to have the federal government do this so all Canadians benefit?
Comments? Deputy Mayor Hicks. I could see you almost said something there.
I just think Councillor Dickert made a good point, but I don't know that I want to comment any further.
Okay. All right. Did I get a seconder on that? We had Councillor Hawking moved it.
I'm the seconder.
Oh, yes. Thanks, Councillor Fitzsimmons. So any further discussion, or do you want to vote whether we support this as is or not? I think we'll vote. So we do have a mover and seconder, all in favor. So we have 1, 2, 3. That is carried. Thank you. Okay, so item 9.6. This is from the Census Communications Statistics Canada, and they are seeking our support to increase awareness of the census among our residents. They're asking for us to help spread the word about completing the census questionnaire online. I also feel that, I can't remember the last time, did we receive a card in the mail that if you wanted a copy to fill out, we could do that? I can't remember, it's been a while. But I think the more that people can do it online, the better and faster it will be, but they will have the option to do it manually for the people that are not online. So that is just for information, and if you're in agreement, we can support this through social media and on our website. Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. While we're on this, I should mention I received an email today from Stats Canada asking for assistance in promoting jobs that are available through Stats Canada to help with the census. In Ontario, there are 9,000 jobs, and they're actually good paying jobs. So they're looking for people to be enumerators, and those jobs pay $17.83 to $29.25 an hour. And then they need crew leaders, and those jobs pay $21.77 all the way up to $31.25. That's in the northern regions per hour. So very good paying jobs. And anyone interested could go to census.gc.ca/jobs. So that's census.gc.ca/jobs, and you can get all the information there.
Good, yeah. important to let everyone know there are jobs there. So, all right, so that's good. That's for information. So moving on, item 10 is reports and correspondence for information. 10.1 is report FI 03-21. Sorry, Brian.
Sorry to interrupt you, Worship, but going back to that census.
I know it's not for information. It's for direction, maybe?
Well, we would like a motion because they also have a resolution that they would like us to support.
What's the resolution? Oh, I got it. Sorry. Be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Hanover supports the 2021 census and encourages all residents to complete their census questionnaire online at www.census.gc.ca. So we do have a mover and seconder. I'll ask all in favor. That is carried. Thank you. So we will support it, and then we'll put that on social media and the website. So, okay, 10.1, we're back to Chief Deniger. We've got report FI 03-21. This is the monthly activity report for January of this year. Chief.
Thank you, Your Worship. So as you can see, for January, our #1 call was medicals. Our overall call volume for the month was a little lower, 11 calls in total, 3 being medicals, and then rescues and false fire calls were both tied for second at 2. The annual fire calls is the same as it's the first month of the year. And our inspections, we completed 4. 4 reports were issued and 2 are in progress. Because of the lockdown, we moved back to complaint and request inspections to try and minimize both exposure to our prevention officer, but also for the safety of our residents. We were able to complete 1 Alarm for Life visit, again, putting the Alarm for Life program on hold during the lockdown period. And there was no public education for the month.
Okay.
If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, you can move right on to that wonderful annual report, 10.2.
Okay, and I think Vicky's going to help me with a presentation. So instead of just going through the document, pulled some of the graphics as well as the information so that we could just have a look at it. If there's any questions throughout, just let me know. So we'll move to the second, that's our title page. So the second page really highlights our mission, vision, and values. And this was created in 2018 by the Hanover Fire staff. And really it's remained unchanged for 2020. The staff really have focused on the same vision, values, and mission. So it did not change. The next one is the Chief's message. So here, what we've outlined is the fact that COVID-19 really did change a lot in the fire service. Created a lot of challenges to overcome. So these challenges were overcome by our volunteers, our paid on-call firefighters. So, you know, they had to deal with going into homes that were potentially had COVID in them, and the fear of at the beginning of just how bad this was. So we had to very quickly come up with some ways to ensure their safety, but it didn't stop them. So even though we weren't sure what was happening or where it was going, you know, the pager went and they all came. So that was really commendable for them. You can see in the Chief's message that this crew spent over 10,000, almost 11,000 hours of training and response time in 2020. Now that's in addition to their daytime jobs, that's in addition to their family. This is just over and above, which is commendable. You can see that there was over 171 emergency calls in total, over 1,500 hours of on-scene personnel time, over 9,200 hours of training and meeting time. Our average response time was 8.2 minutes within the municipality. We developed a 3-year training plan. consistent with NFPA as well as local requirements. We completed a third-party audit of our swift water operations and training procedures. We significantly improved access to training material using an online training portal. Spent a lot of time adding training information and videos and our own standard operating guidelines and Section 21 information, lesson plans. So it's a huge resource for training now. We increased the number of members on our critical incident stress management team. We implemented new high angle rescue protocols. We created fire department procedures on handling COVID. And we were able to obtain over $15,000 in donations. That's just a bit of a summary. If we move to the next one, Vicki. So the 3 lines of defense are set out by the Ontario Fire Marshal's Office. So the public education and prevention, fire safety standards and enforcement, and emergency response. So if we look at those 3 areas, the department really was hampered in a lot of the public education and prevention because of COVID. During lockdowns, we had to pull right back. When we weren't in lockdown, we were significantly hampered in doing our normal activity. So we had to look for other ways of getting the message out. So we moved to a lot more social media messaging. We did a fire sprinkler information kiosk. That was new, well received, and that was by our fire prevention officer, Rob Hagan. He also did a mall display between lockdowns and talked about smoke alarms. We did one class tour before the first lockdown, and we did have our Alarm for Life program. As you'll see later on, we did do some inspections, but really COVID did hamper that. We were very cognizant of the safety of not only our staff, but of our residents. On standards and enforcement, as I mentioned prior, during lockdowns, Fire Prevention Officer Hagan had to pull back our inspections to complaint and request, whereas normally it would be a very proactive approach. And for emergency response, we continued the support of the Grey County Training Association, the Grey County Regional Training Center, Grey County Chiefs Association, made lots of operational change to improve efficiency and reduce delays. We acquired a 2021 Chevrolet pickup to replace a 2000 unit, which had over 200,000 kilometers. So it was well used. And we did our tanker shuttle accreditation to ensure that our tanker operations meet standards of the industry. So the next slide, we'll look at education and prevention. This is our Alarm for Life stats. So you can see that we attempted to get into almost 100 homes. We were able to then enter 72 because it is not mandatory. And we found that 42 were not compliant. That's a 30.5% compliance rate, which is a little lower than 2019. But in 2019, we didn't have COVID, and we were able to get into a lot more homes. So it's a little, the results are a little skewed. So the next slide looks at fire safety and enforcement. We saw 116 initial inspections, and you can see the bulk of those were in residential, so a lot of apartments. And then there was 51 follow-up inspections, and those follow-up inspections verified that the activity was completed. So the initial inspection identified problem areas, and then the follow-up would go back to make sure that it was completed within the time frame allowed by Fire Prevention Officer Hagan. Our next slide is the organizational chart. And so our members here are paid on call. They carry pagers and they respond 24 hours a day, no matter what, like 6 o'clock this morning in the deep snow. And in 2019, we started a medical team. So that medical team is helpful because we're reducing the number of people that are responding to medical calls. We don't need 27 people paged for a medical. So we reduce the number of paged, and then on the weekend, we only have 4 on call. So it means that if you're on call, you have to be available at all times. You can't leave pager range. You basically have to stay in town. And so it really reduces the number of people that we have to have on call for medicals. The next slide looks at our apparatus, and this is updated this year because we did get a 2021 pickup. It's not in service yet because we only got it in December. And we're having trouble getting a lot of the parts to get it ready for radio and lights and sirens and everything. But we're hoping within March or April it should be ready. And everything else remains unchanged from last year. If we look at emergency response, we had 142 calls within the town of Hanover, 22 in West Grey and 7 in Brockton. We cover portions of West Grey and Brockton under contract. 83% of the calls were in Hanover, 12.8 in West Grey, and 4% in Brockton. The second graph there shows you the number of hours or staff hours that were transpired in each of the locations. So of course, Hanover was the highest at 1,203 hours of on-call service. Emergency response, again, looking at, these are fire emergencies. So you can see that 2020 saw the lowest number of fires for the last 5 years. That equated to what we estimate as 180,500 in damages in 2020. But again, it's only 2.1% of our calls. So I really feel that the work that Fire Prevention Officer Hagen is doing is paying off. That we're seeing a continued decrease in those numbers. Now, there are situations that occur that you can't prevent. I mean, there is cars that catch on fire because of electrical problems. It's nobody's fault. But a lot of the education that Fire Prevention Officer Hagen is doing, I think, is really paying off in educating people on smoke alarms and educating them on fire safe behavior. So if we look at overall, this graph, the first one shows you where our calls came from. 171 calls in total. First being medical at 27%, second being false fire calls at 20%, and third being rescues at 15%. And then everything else makes up the difference. We did class pre-fire conditions. There was 9 pre-fire condition calls, and that's situations where could have been a fire, but we got there soon enough. Sometimes it's a pot that has overheated that filled the house full of smoke, but we got there soon enough, applied some agent to it and got it cooled down, as an example. The graph below it shows that of our medical calls in 2020, the highest number of medical calls was for vital signs absent. So that's where 911 was called because the person was not breathing. There was no heart rate. And I can verify that there was at least one save recorded where fire department arrived before paramedics and we achieved a pulse through life-saving activity. Now, there's quite possibly more than that, but we don't always hear. So I know that one for sure because it was verified on the way back to the hospital that they got a pulse. So the next graph or the next table just is an outline of the calls themselves, a summary of the pie graph basically. The fire call history looks at all the sections of different fire calls over the last 5 years. 2020 saw a decrease in calls from 2019, clearly as a result of the lockdowns, because the minute a lockdown occurred, there was a drastic decrease in fire calls. The first one especially. The second one was noticeable, not as drastic as the first. And this is just a representation so that you can see the last 5 years of data. The next one looks at the month of calls. Again, this varies year to year, but you can see that July was our busiest. People were out and about, moving, doing stuff. And then, of course, December, June, and March were all tied for second. You can really see that in the summer that it typically is our busier time because people are out and about doing things. They're on the river, or they're out and about. The next graph looks at comparators. Now, this information is based on 2019 data because, of course, 2020 is not available for all the other municipalities because they're all just kind of reporting at this point. But what we can see is that comparator 1 its number one calls was medicals at 115. Comparator 2, its number 1 was rescues at 85. Number 3, medicals at 42. And number 4, medicals at 227. This graph does show that Hanover here at the end with our 171 calls and a breakdown of those calls. Time of day emergencies is the next one, just showing you when are we getting these calls? Again, it's going to change year to year. Next year's graph is going to look very different than this year. But you could see that the busiest time this year was between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. And emergency response is our next one. So this is an interesting one. What we look at is how quickly did we get to the scene? And you can see in this graph that it was an average of 8.02 minutes, which was a decrease of 0.06 minutes from 2019. The assembly time is the time it takes from the 911 call till the truck's leaving the station. So that's firefighters getting to the station, getting dressed, getting on the truck, having the truck filled and out the door. Our en route time was only 1.43 minutes, and the average dispatch time was 0.49, which was less than a minute. That's the time it takes the dispatch center to identify which fire department is to go and paging us out. Training and certifications, I like to make sure that you're aware of what we've been working on, but again, COVID really hampered us in our training and certifications. We had a lot more planned for 2020, but this is what we were able to accomplish. And a lot of it was accomplished prior to COVID lockdowns. We did what we could through the lockdowns, but the training options were really reduced. And then our next section just looks at an overall accomplishment. Some of these I've already talked about, so I'm not going to go over them again. But we had 3 significant membership milestones. So Captain Chris Karcher had 20 years of service, Captain Rob Hagan has 15 years of service, and firefighter Mark Dillon has 5 years of service. Really thankful for all of their work. We purchased a larger capacity air compressor to help fill our self-contained breathing apparatus bottles. We purchased the 21 pickup, and that will be used for decontamination, drone response, and fire prevention. We are adding additional members to the critical incident stress management team, which will be helpful when we have those critical calls. We included a lot of operating guidelines to help us manage the COVID-19 response. So we had to make sure that our staff were safe. So we used the PPE, we had bought more, and came up with protocols that ensured that they were safe going into homes and coming in contact with medicals with no vitals absent, I'm sorry. We updated the Hanover Fire Agility Test, which is a test that we do with the applicants to make sure that they can complete the activities that the fire department requires. We completed our tanker shuttle. We updated our high angle process. We purchased 6 new immersion suits as a result of a donation from Jenny Jones Foundation. So that was really helpful. And those 6 suits are going to be really handy when we jump in the cold water coming up in the next few weeks. We continued our smoke alarms for senior campaign with a helpful donation from a resident that provides smoke alarms for seniors. We provided support to the Emergency Services Facility Review Committee. We did a successful Stuck the Truck event with Giant Tiger at Christmas time, and we completed a technical rescue agreement with Aaron Eldersley. So at the last section here, we're looking ahead now, and COVID-19 will continue to be a bit of a problem for us. We're going to maintain our protocols, our safety protocols, continue our decontamination processes. So a lot of our fire decontamination processes actually fit nicely into our COVID decontamination processes. Our drone pilots will have to work on recency training to maintain their advanced drone pilot licenses. The critical incident stress team will continue to develop new strategies and tools to ensure our firefighters are provided with crucial peer support after critical incidences. We'll continue to work with the Emergency Services Facility Review Committee and provide support. We will get our 2021 truck ready as soon as we can, so that we can put it into service. We continue to be supported by paid on-call firefighters, and you know, I think it's really important for the general public to understand that these are people that carry a pager with them 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's on their nightstand at night charging. The calls come in, you can see from the graph, at any time of day. Typically wakes up the entire house. And even through COVID, the response has never stopped. So even in that time early on in the year where we weren't sure how bad this really was, and we were going to medicals, and we were going to fires, and we were going to people to help get them out of vehicle accidents. We initiated those safeties as quickly as possible. We got the message out, and they kept coming. So I'm really proud of this group. I'm thankful for this group, because without this group, we don't have a fire department. 2021 will continue to bring lots of challenges and lots of situations that I'm sure this team will accomplish and achieve results just as they have in 2020. So that's a very quick review. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Well, thanks, Chief. Excellent report. It reflects the dedication and the commitment of the firefighters, and we appreciate it. The residents of Hanover and area appreciate it. So thank you very much. Councillor Dickert.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just like to congratulate you, Chief Denninger, on the team you've put together there. Of the gentlemen that I know, and of the people that I know that are involved with it, they love what they do. They do a great job for our community, and you can be very proud of them. And your annual report was very polished, very professional, very well done. I do have one question, and that is based on the volunteer fire people that we are using. Is there any acknowledgement to the employers of those people to say thanks for the support they give?
That's a great idea, and it's something that Mayor Sue and I have talked about doing since I've become chief a couple of years ago, and it's definitely on the agenda and radar, and something we should be doing.
Okay, good, thank you.
Councillor Fleet, and then Councillor Hawking, Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Jeff, for your presentation. As a resident of Hanover, it's nice to have such a highly trained and dedicated group of firefighters looking after our community. I just have one question for you. And do you have any issues finding recruitments? Like, is this going to be an issue going forward? A concern for you, or there's no issue there at all?
Thank you for the question, Your Worship. Yes, always. We hire annually, and every year we put out the request. We cross our fingers. We ask people to come out, be a part of our fire department, and do things that, you know, other people would shake their head at, plus give up, as you could see, over 10,000 hours throughout the year, and carry a pager 24 hours a day, and and leave work. Oh, and then, you know, if you fight a fire all night, you still got to go to work. And so there have been times where people will come out and try it for a while and say, this isn't for me. So we try and educate them right off the get-go to say, this is what it's going to be like. And we can't change this. So it might not be for you. And so we try and educate before we put the time and effort, because you're looking at 3 to 4 years to train someone before they're ready for structural firefighting. And so, yeah, to answer your question, every year we put the word out, we cross our fingers that people still want to do it.
Well, thanks, Jeff, for everything you do for our community.
Okay. Councillor Hawking.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your service, Chief Denninger, and to all your team of firefighters. I'm just interested in who does your graphics and artwork for your report.
Thank you, Your Worship. You're looking at him. Actually, one of our firefighters actually came up with some of the pictures through some of our training, which was helpful. Some of them are captured on scene. Some of them are captured during training. Kind of a hodgepodge, but it's basically us that grab all the pictures and then I just kind of throw them together.
Well, your graphics are excellent. The report is polished, and I just want to congratulate you for your great leadership and your report. It's well laid out, and as they say, a picture says 1,000 words. So thanks again, Chief.
Yes. Okay. Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I echo what other members of council have said. The department does incredible work, and we really appreciate everything that you and your department do on our behalf. I do have a couple of questions. In the report, it goes into the percentage of false fire calls, and it's fairly high. Is that a problem everywhere typically, and what would constitute a false fire call to categorize there?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, it's a problem everywhere. I would say our numbers are lower than the average, and the reason is it could be a number of things. There's a lot of detection systems malfunction. So the minute they malfunction, they send out an alarm. Once that alarm goes to a dispatch center, we are obligated by legislation to investigate. Because once the alarm is activated, if someone calls and says, no, it's not a real alarm, and we don't check it out, some bad things could happen. The other thing is some of it is perceived emergencies. So somebody smells what they think is gas and they call 911. And we go out and we investigate it and we find the source, and it's not anything to be worried about, or we don't find the source because there wasn't any, or it dissipated, or whatever the situation may be. So it could be any one of those situations where it could be mechanical, it could be electronic, it could be just a perceived emergency that really wasn't one.
And the other question I had, Chief, was one of the recent additions last year that you had was the drones in operation. Just wondering how they've benefited the department to date so far.
Really helpful. We didn't have a lot of fires last year. As you saw, we only had 3, but the ones that we did have, the drone was incredibly helpful to find hotspots and to ensure the safety of our crews inside, and also getting aerial photos of the scene that we can use in reporting to do our investigations. We actually use it a lot during training. It's really beneficial, and we're constantly training with it to see how far can we push it. We've used it in accidents to assess any potential hazards in the accident scene before we get right inside of it. Really helpful tool, really helpful tool. The thermals on it are impressive and really give you an eye for the situation that we would never get otherwise. You just can't. You can't get a view of that from 100 feet up in any other way.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's good to know. So any other comments or questions? Councillor Cable.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much for your report, Chief. I think it's really obvious through your report and through every time that you speak with us about how people focused the fire department is. I think that's a great asset for our community. And I think the response time is truly commendable when you look at the numbers and how quickly people have to get to the station. I'm always amazed by the efforts and the focus that you place on training and certification of members and fire prevention activities and community engagement. So thank you for your leadership in really making the Hanover Police Service, the Hanover Fire Service really something special. And I think it's a service that we have to greatly appreciate in the town of Hanover.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's the members that need the commendation. Without them, we don't have a fire department. And again, like I said, we're asking them to get up at 6 a.m. and 2 a.m. and 1 a.m. and yeah. So thank you.
Okay, good. Deputy Mayor Hicks.
So again, full disclosure, my son is a member of the Hanover fire fighting team. And I want to ditto what everyone else has already said and just acknowledge that I'm from one of those families that gets woken up at all those odd hours. And that thing is pretty darn loud when it goes off. So yeah, no, great report and great stats, and I'm really proud of this team.
Good. Okay, thank you. All right, moving on, 10.3, this is the Hanover-Walkerton Waste Management Committee meeting minutes from January 26th. Councillor Dickert to highlight, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. At our meeting that day, we reviewed the recent change to the on-site polystyrene densifier program, utilizing second wind recycling, and all seems to be working well on that. I would like to recognize Smitty's Furniture, who is a source of a large volume of this product, for entering into an agreement with Second Wind on their own, and they are doing their own recycling at their site. So it takes that workload away from our landfill site. So congratulations and thank you to Smitty's for that. The Ontario Electronic Stewardship Program ended on December 31st of 2020. Hanover-Walkerton landfill site will continue to provide an e-waste recycling program through Green Tech. The new program does generate more revenue from the recycled products, but we now incur bin costs. So the bottom line is there's really not any financial change. We're not gaining anything by the increased revenue because we have an additional cost now, and it's pretty much a wash. Our overall landfill volumes in 2020 increased by 17%. Curbside volume saw a 10.2 overall percent increase on Hanover side and a 9.2 overall increase on the Walkerton side. Our change to the different sized recycling bins at the site, if anyone's been there, you'll notice that rather than the two long recycling bins, there is now like 10 of the 6 cubic yard ones sitting there. They've brought some minor challenges with them, such as the wind has a little more access to some of the product that's in there, blows a few of the papers around the lids. Some of them are blowing shut on people and things of that nature, but there's also some positive outcomes, and as they are easier to access, they are much more efficient as far as getting rid of the product because you aren't taking half bins away, you just take the full ones away, and certainly saving us efforts there. And there is work being done to address the challenges with it, whether they're going to put some stakes or something that will hold those lids in place, and maybe some fencing or something to catch that paper that does manage to get caught by the wind. The other thing that we have is cell 2 is now up and in full operation and receiving landfill on a regular basis. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Councillor Dickert? So I do have a question, and so the residential curbside pickup has increased by 10% for Hanover and almost 10%, 9% for Walkerton, I should say. So that doesn't mean that the base amount going in is the same, right? It means that Hanover is, there is more waste going in from Hanover than there is from Walkerton. Am I correct in saying that?
We had a 10% increase over the year before, and Walkerton had a 9.2% increase. So right. It was similar, but we did have more of an increase than what Walkerton did, yes.
Right. So then the cash and debit has increased by 28%. Is that because of COVID?
That's maybe kind of the general theme. I don't think anybody knows for sure why that is, but the thinking is that people have time on their hands. They've been cleaning out their basements, cleaning out their garages, and this has generated a lot more over the scale loads. People coming in with a truck or trailer of their own. So it's not the curbside as much as this cleaning the house projects that I'm sure everyone's had the chance to get to when they've been locked down or unable to travel as they would normally do.
Right. Okay. And one further comment. In 2020, I'm not sure if all of council is aware, Councillor Dickert and our CAO and myself met with representatives from Brockton who want to renegotiate the agreement we have on the landfill. And the last action that was taken from that meeting was Brockton was to share information with us. And at this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Teixeira if you have had any response regarding that in 2021, just so we're aware of where that is sitting.
Just for background, Your Worship, for the rest of council. So you're right, we met in December to discuss the agreement. During the discussions, Brockton introduced the idea of allowing all Brockton residents to use the landfill as opposed to just Walkerton. However, there was obviously raised a lot of questions, particularly with respect to the capacity and expansion opportunities around their own landfills, because obviously ours is going to fill up a lot quicker. And then what do? So we asked them to explore or to provide information with respect to the landfills that are currently in Brockton, estimated life, opportunities for expansion. But not only that, just to make sure that the C of A's, the certificates of approvals, could actually accept waste from outside. Because right now, the way the C of A's are structured, for example, in the Hanover C of A, it can only accept waste from Walkerton. So that requires a Ministry of Environment amendment approval. And the same would go for their landfills. So the Public Works, directors of Public Works from both municipalities, Mr. Cooper, as well as Mr. Help me here.
Courtney.
Right. Right. Are looking at all that information. So at this point, we're waiting to hear back from Brockton as to when that information will be available, and then we'll get together again.
Okay, good. Thank you. Just so council is aware, that's on the radar. Okay, 10.4, and I didn't ask if anyone had questions. Just please speak up. 10.4 is the Hanover Police Services Board meeting minutes from January 26th. This was a special meeting that we called to address an upgrade to the services radio system. The West Gray Police Service is replacing their radio system following some recent failures in their system. And our chief explained that the two services need to communicate, ours and theirs, of course, to provide assistance, as in backup assistance to each other. So it is an issue for officer and public safety. So our service, the Hanover Police Service, had planned to replace the radios beginning in 2020 with a completion date in 2022. However, with West Gray and their situation, we had to change and purchase our radios now so that we're compatible with them. So that special meeting was called. The cost, their estimate is $35,000 for those radios, and the board decided that money will come from reserves for that. So that's just an update of what's happening. I should say police service radio and the tower upgrades. They're not just radios, it's the tower upgrades. And if there's any questions, I can try and answer them. Okay, that was for information. Thank you. The Hanover 10.5 is the Hanover Public Library Board meeting minutes from January 28th. Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. We had in that particular meeting a fairly lengthy discussion on board education pertaining to a TV documentary called The Bruce, episode 1, pertaining to fishing chiefs. It was quite educational and about the 150-year struggle to maintain First Nations lands, which I think a lot of us are quite well aware of, and it was quite interesting to hear their perspectives. The policy committee reported that they met and did some work on sponsorship and donation policies. So that is in progress and to be updated soon. And they put in an application, as they always do, for the Youth Canada Works Grant. There has been an extension by the federal government in that program because they didn't receive enough applications, I assume. And so that's extended. So there should be a good opportunity for us to get the usual student grant that we do get. But other than that, pretty well a normal operational meeting.
Good, thank you. Okay, item 10.6. This is a letter from the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs advising us that there are changes to the food premises regulation under the Health Protection and Promotion Act. And it now allows for more flexibility for small independent businesses to sell their low-risk home-prepared foods from their homes or at special events like farmers markets, festivals, and fairs. And out of interest, low-risk foods are non-hazardous and they do not require refrigeration. So some of the items are baked goods, pickles, jams, preserves, chocolates, hard candies, fudge, toffees, granola, trail mix, nuts and seeds, coffee beans, and tea leaves, just in case you want to get into a little business on the side. That's for information. So that should help some people. So, all right, item 11 is counselor and staff updates. So let's start, we'll go the opposite way. Counselor Cable, anything to update?
Thank you, Your Worship. A few items, some of them have already been mentioned. I did attend the special council meeting regarding Hanover's growth study on January the 18th, and I think there's a lot of information to process at that meeting. But I think it's great to see our special policy areas and OPA 3 moving forward. And I think that the conversation between Hanover and surrounding municipalities and the county and the province is certainly a great approach and an excellent step forward. I think that Brian's assembled a top team to help lead this project. I attended the cultural roundtable event on January the 21st. I did have some technical issues at that meeting, but I was able to watch it again on Facebook. And I think that that kind of sparked my mind around the idea of our recorded meetings, of council meetings, committee meetings, and webinars. And I think it's been quite handy to have those recordings available online. I thought it was a great event, and it was great to see all those cultural assets together. And I think it really demonstrated the diversity of the opportunities in Hanover. And I think it'll be a great recording to have available for new residents to our town in the future. I attended the planning advisory meeting on February the 9th, as was previously mentioned, and I agree with Councillor Hawking and Councillor Fleet and yourself that I think it'll be a very impressive property and development going on the corner of 7th and 10th. And I also was able to catch some of our virtual family day activities, and I think that it was a great family day this year. The ice sculptures in Heritage Square were fantastic. It's great to see so many pictures on Facebook and Twitter and social media with families gathering at Heritage Square. I certainly had a fun time helping to prepare the craft video for our virtual celebration. So many thanks to Sherry and Laura and April and everybody that helped to make that event such a success. I think we're getting to be really good at these virtual events, and hopefully we won't have to do too many more.
Right, good, thank you. Councillor Fleet.
Thank you, Your Worship. January 21st, I zoomed into the Hanover Culture Exchange event. It was great to see and hear all the history and stories from all these different organizations. February 14th, Hanover Family Day. There's no place like home. It's so true. After waking up to all the snow, I enjoy seeing all the snow sculptures around town, ice sculptures at Heritage Square. They're just all awesome. I just want to say a big thanks to Sherry and Laura and the Parks and Rec staff for a job well done. And also thanks to all the sponsors for their donations to make this event happen. And just attending my committee meetings, and that's about all I've got to report.
Good, thank you. Councillor Hawking.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to echo Harold and Brandon's comments on Family Day. It was outstanding. Lauren and I participated in a couple of the virtual activities. And as I said before, I think Lauren and I need a remedial course in pop culture because we scored very poorly. I think we came last of 25 people. So anyway, it was a lot of fun and truly amazing how these folks responded. So yeah, kudos to Sherry, to Laura, to April, and all the staff that participated. I've carried on with my committee work, as I mentioned tonight, the EDC, the Cultural Roundtable. What else? Planning Advisory I tuned into, and I've already made comment on that. I attended the monthly Probus meeting, and Gary Granger was the guest speaker, and he talked about Telsat, and it was very, very informative. And I didn't realize all the activities that Telsat are involved with to maintain the communication links within our country. I attend snowbird meetings on Saturdays, and we're working to that end. And emergency services. I just wanted to, we don't report publicly on it, but we're moving ahead quite nicely. And our next meeting is on February the 25th, and we're going to be looking at sort of a review of the draft report. So it's coming together, and I'm sure we probably will be making a presentation to council before the May deadline that we had indicated in our motion. So the volunteers have done an excellent job, and Brian has served as recorder and has kept us sort of on a straight pattern. So it's been good. It's been good. And finally, thanks. We've mentioned about the virtual cultural exchange. First attempt. Thank you, Your Worship, for being involved. We did a bit of a review, and we're going to do one again. So great response. Thanks to everybody who participated, and I'll call it a night. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Hawking. You didn't mention the yoga activity on Family Day. Did you just watch that or participate when you and Lorna were there?
I got started, and then I started using a chair, Your Worship.
Good for you for doing it. Good for you. Councillor Dickert.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I certainly have to add my congratulations to the team on the Family Day events. It was certainly well done. Deb and I tried our hands at snow sculpting, and I think you all saw a picture of how poorly that went, but certainly was a fun time to get out there and try that. So again, thanks to the team that put that together. It was really good. And as I said earlier, certainly a lot of good positive comments about what the town did and engaging the different families around and giving them an opportunity to enjoy the day. As far as meetings, they've certainly resumed since the Christmas break. I had the Smart Board meetings on January 15th, 22nd, and the 5th, February the 5th. And then on February 8th, we actually met with the Grey County CAO, Kim Wingrove, and Transportation Manager Stephanie Stewart to discuss how SMART will fit into or may fit into the Grey County transportation plans. So we've started down that road, and got some tasks in front of us to deal with to see how we fit there. I attended the virtual town hall meeting with Dr. Eyre on January 20th and the virtual Bruce Power Municipal Leaders Call on January 21st. Both very good information and a great way to keep up on the happenings around Grey and Bruce. Waste management and age-friendly meetings, 2 of them on January 26th. So as I said, the meetings are back on, and that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fitzsimmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. Like the rest of our council, I certainly want to say congratulations to our town staff, in particular, Laura, Sherry, and Lindsay, who did a great job organizing what I thought was a very entertaining and creative Family Day virtual event. I had some fun as the host of the Family Bingo, which I think a lot of people enjoyed. And I mean, I think we've all seen the spectacular photos of the various snow creations around town, and a shout out to our own Brian Teixeira, who put in one of the best ones, I think, with a lot of hard work. So congratulations to him and everyone else who's done that. But I think we've all been quite entertained with that. And I mean, the ice sculptures are spectacular. And I think a lot of people have been taking selfies with them, and we've seen that. So I think a lot of people have been having a lot of fun. I decorated some cookies quite terribly, I might add, out of the kit. My wife even somewhat criticized me for that, how ugly they were, but they tasted fine. So, and my wife played some trivia as well. She enjoyed that. And I think a lot of people enjoyed the overall events overall. So congratulations to everyone in the town for looking after that. And I think the residents were quite pleased to participate. It was obviously nice to have a Heritage Committee meeting finally, and I have another one next week. So they're getting really rolling now after not having one for a year. And I've got a couple of upcoming library board meetings as well. And so, yeah, it's starting to ramp up just a little bit, but all virtually, obviously.
Good. Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Hicks.
Thank you, Your Worship. I continue to be very, very busy with meetings. It seems that I have this marathon of sitting in front of this device. And when COVID is over, I'll look forward to it because the meetings will be cut probably in half. But too many to list, but I continue to be very busy. I too attended the Cultural Roundtables virtual exchange event and thought it was very good and very entertaining and heartwarming almost to see all of those things listed, you know, in one place. You realize, oh, we got a lot going on in this community. It's an excellent place to live. I want to acknowledge the resiliency of our staff, both at the county level and here in the town of Hanover. We're approaching a year with, you know, are we closed? Are we open? Are we, you know, pivoting constantly? And if the public is tired, you can imagine how tired staff must be, constantly having to be sort of ready for that next possibility. So that really needs to be acknowledged. And who knows what the next pivot is going to be as we move into vaccination and our community's commitment to playing a role in making sure that those vaccinations get done. A lot of people doing a lot of extra work. We're calling on our staff to do, you know, yeoman's work. Keep responding. So I really want to just acknowledge them and thank them for everything that they're doing.
Thank you. And I'm almost the same, regular county council meetings, same as the deputy mayor and the county budget, emergency control group meetings for the town of Hanover and for the county. Couple of different things. I did do a CTV news interview with London. It's like a 15-minute interview for a 30-second clip, right? The culture event, which was very good. Looking forward to the next one. Also attended the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority annual general meeting. That went very well. We've had a police board meeting, a West Ontario meeting. I participated in a Facebook event with Dr. Era about public health and the school reopenings. So that was interesting. And out of my comfort zone, video do-it-yourself cookie decorating. That was brand new to me. So, but it was fun. I enjoyed it. And I also, I believe the deputy mayor did too, attended a meeting with General Hillier about the vaccine rollout. And he is very impressive when he speaks, and he's very thorough, articulate. And if he doesn't know the answer, he tells you right up front. I do not know, but I will find out. So it's nice to see that. There's no, just nice to see that. I'll be polite about it. So good. Things are good. So, and we're all getting really familiar with Zoom, and I agree, more meetings than we've ever had before, but I think we're getting used to it. So, all right, I'll start with staff now. So Brian, I'll ask you for an update.
Sure. Your worship, before I get into this, were you going to
I
announce...
was at the end of the dates, unless you want me to do it now, or do you want to do it?
No, do you mind?
Okay, I can do it. So we do have, this is a memo that went out to staff, but it's also, it's regarding the reopening, so the public is aware of what's going on. So effective February 22nd, we will be reopening both the Civic Center, and that includes the library, and the P&H Center to the public. So the measures that were in place at the December 26th lockdown will be put back in place. So this opening up on the 22nd allows us time to advise and recall staff and plan for the reintegration into their respective workplaces, as well as allow us to provide notice to the public. In addition, the pool cannot be reopened until an inspection is done by public health, and that's happening this week. So the Civic Center will reopen to the public from 10 in the morning till 6:30 p.m., Monday to Friday, no weekends. Both the east and the west side sliding doors will be open, with all lower level public washrooms will be open during these hours. All other doors will be locked, including the Saugeen Room corridor, the community hall, the council chambers, the theater, the upstairs washrooms. And those are located outside the chamber council chambers. Sorry. Access to the upper and lower corridors, the library vestibule will be posted during library hours, and administration office will be available to the public. So no public access to the Saugeen Room, community hall, or the theater at this time. The town's administrative offices will open from 10 till 4:30 p.m. And that's for service like general inquiries, like paying invoices, bag tags, anything you can think you want to ask staff. Visitors and contractors wishing to meet with staff or perform work will be required to make an appointment. All public visitors to the building will be required to wear a mask at all times unless they are exempt under Regulation 364-20. So the pool and the walking track will be open with all the same processes that were in place prior to the December shutdown. Pre-registration will be required for all pool programs, and patrons will be required to wear their bathing attire to the pool and enter through the family change room. Male and female change rooms will be available for a quick change following the pool program. And spring swim lessons and advanced aquatic leadership courses will begin in March. The library's reopening plan and hours of operations will be within the 10 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. timeframe. It is planned that all activity with library patrons will occur within the library vestibule and not in the corridor of the building. And the library will be issuing a separate notice to the public about this. So that's the update. Did you want to add anything to that, Brian? I think I got a lot of it.
Yep, that's good. Thanks.
Okay, all right. So,
yeah, so some of the things that we've been working on, we talked a little bit about the growth plan phase 2 work today. So that continues. And now that we've appointed 2 council reps, we're looking forward to meeting with West Gray. What an important component of that work was to look at our special policy areas. And as such, there will be an official plan amendment, number 3. Coming forward, public meeting on March 15th at 7 p.m. That's a council night, so that'll kick off with a public meeting on OPA number 3. As Councillor Hawking said, the Emergency Services Facility Review Committee work is continuing, and I think they're going to be in good position to present the report before May 31st. Continue to participate in physician weekly COVID meetings, which are very interesting and enlightening. And now that the budget has been passed, we're now in the tendering stage. So we're reviewing a lot of tender documents, RFPs, and advertising those accordingly for. And the good thing is that we're getting out early, particularly with respect to some of our bigger capital projects. So we're hoping that the pricing comes in competitively. Community service, the community safety and well-being plan work is continuing. Unfortunately, we've lost our coordinator, Sarah Cowley, who's taken on a good job, a good position with Family Y as the executive director. So their gain is obviously community safety and well-being's loss. However, we have a meeting on Friday, and we're hoping that the steering committee has some plans as to how we're going to move forward on that. And of course, participating in the weekly vaccination meetings, and I'm sure Sherry will provide more update on that. That's it, Your Worship.
Very good. Thank you. Of course, if anyone has any questions, just speak up. Chris Walker, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. We're still trying to complete some of the year end. We're still receiving accounts payable invoices for 2020. It's making it difficult to do our year end closing because we're working on the year end audits for all our organizations. We have at least 10 different organizations that we have to do books for, so it takes a long time to go through that. We are meeting on site tomorrow with our architect to go over some of the drawings and some of the layout that we're looking at for the drawings, because we're hoping that the documents will be ready to go for the tender by late March. We issued the interim tax bills the last week of, what was it, February 5th, around there. So they've gone out, and those will be a due date of the end of February as well as the end of May. There's 2 due dates on that. We've been busy working on a lot of the grants with the resilience stream for the ICIP, reports for grants for OSIF, you name it, there's grants coming out everywhere. They keep sending us notifications. Fill out this, redo this document, do all these things. The Hanover Family Center, the new rooftop unit has been installed, and Keystone also added a new washroom that has been upgraded. They received a bunch of grant money, so that's why they wanted to put it into the rooftop unit in the washroom. So that's underway and almost completed. And medical clinic, there's been no major changes. Everything's business as usual there for them. And I think that's it for now.
Lots happening. So, okay, thank you. Dawn Tedford, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to say I had a very nice day yesterday touring all the sculptures and looking for where they all were, and there was pretty nice ones out there. Everything from the Dalmatian dog and the fire hydrant, and all the way over to, I thought I should get out and maybe try and roast a marshmallow or a wiener over there but I didn't do that either because it didn't look like it. It looked hot, but anyways, in the ice sculptures, everything was just a lot of hard work went into all that stuff, and I enjoyed the day looking at them. Anyways, around the office, it just seems to be very busy. I've been talking to some of the chamber members as well, and there seems to be a real uptake in commercial activity around the town. You know, we've got the stacked pancake house wanting to get going. The COVID actually shut down a lot of the commercial stuff and put it kind of like a month and a half behind unless it was essential, and so they really didn't get started on a lot of these projects. We have an office use wanting to move in behind the A&W building, and we've got that 936, which Hoffman brought something to the committee. They actually called back, and they're looking for a letter of support from the town, and they're looking for investors, and they're wanting to go ahead. That's a long-term one, but that 300 units is, and the commercial front end encompassing those ponds is a real big advantage for, it's hard to think that Hanover could take up that much dwelling along with having 90 new units on the main street. But anyways, it just seems to be, we've had over 450 of the townhouses built in the last 15 years. So I think we're it's hard to believe that kind of stuff is coming around. Tender Pizza's moving. The new gas bar at 167 is getting ready to start and wanting to do things. And it just seems to be an increasing activity in the commercial. The Queen's Hotel, they called again this morning to start activity with regards to the drawings, the construction drawings. They're looking at a June or a July start on the foundation. So everything's falling in place for them after the planning meeting on Tuesday night. Residential construction finally got snowed on and slowed down a bit, but they are trying to dig out again, and we are issuing permits still as we go. Another 3 new homes went out as of today as well. So it's not quieting down all that much. Brian mentioned our official plan amendment number 3, which is going to be a public meeting on the March 15th council meeting. I'm looking forward to moving forward on that one. I'm also including with that one a couple of housekeeping residential requests that we've had over the years. So we've had 3 from, well, there's Mr. Barfoot and Jack Shank and Brian Hawk, and also from Clancy, which we actually moved forward on to allow for those 20 new towns that are under construction right now. We'll clean up the official plan for those areas, and that could cause some discussion. I just wanted to bring it to council's attention, but I would like to include those changes to allow some of the residential to move forward and not freeze everything up on the commercial, being that we are moving ahead with our phase 2 on our growth plan. So other than that, COVID-19, we're opened up again for construction. Staff like myself and the inspections and everything else are going according to Hoyle. We're wearing the mask, keeping the 2 meters, washing our hands, and you don't hear touching your face anymore. But anyways, we're trying to abide by all the rules with the COVID, and Ken's doing a great job out there with dealing with the Hanover Police Services, and everything's going along. Hopefully we'll see, as somebody else mentioned, the vaccine move forward a little quicker and we get back to normal a little sooner. So thank you.
Good. Thanks, Don. Okay, Sherry.
Thank you, Mayor Sue, and I will be sure to pass on your kind comments to Laura and April. They really deserve a lot of credit for our Family Day success, and our community as well for just really embracing the spirit of the snow sculptures and the ice sculptures and the virtual activities. So thank you, council and staff who either pre-recorded videos, hosted live, and or built snow sculptures. I think we all discovered that building a snow sculpture is a really great exercise. I think Councillor Fleet said something about maybe needing to hire some counseling because of some arguments that occurred in his house. But overall, it's fun and great activity on these winter days. So we need our community to vote for those 30 sculptures that our community members made. So vote for go to our Town of Hanover Facebook and vote for the sculptures you think should be our winners. And to pass on our thanks to our sponsors, Edgewell Personal Care, Bruce Power, who are title sponsors, as well as Hanover Bentig Brand Agricultural Society and Hanover Raceway, Norm's Restaurant, and Schultz has gone totally baked. We couldn't do that without their support. P&H Center, we are preparing for that reopening, as Mayor Sue mentioned. Our health inspection is tomorrow. We did have a number of phone calls today from our patrons. And so we would just say, watch for the town's social media website, and we will be communicating directly with our patrons once we've got that official word to reopen. So we're preparing like we will be opening on Monday. Of course, we had to refill the waiting pool and we call our staff, get our programs ready, that type of thing. Immunization hub, we are supporting that setup fairly substantially with staff commitment to assist with that setup and coordination in cooperation with Public Health and Bruce Power. So we're expecting some more activity in the next couple of days because the intent is that we are ready to roll as of Friday. Should there be vaccines and we get that word that we could be operational as of after Friday, I should say. And then I just want to pass on one more thank you, and that's to our ICE user groups for their commitment and adaptability. While the 2020-2021 ICE season was short, the efforts of our volunteer executive members to deal with the many pandemic-related decisions for the benefit of our community members is appreciated. So thank you so much to our minor hockey, our minor ringette, and our adult hockey groups that did get back and operating, and we will look forward to seeing them in the next ice season. That's it, unless there's any questions from council.
Thanks, Sherry. Any questions? Okay, good. Thank you. Chief Denniger.
Thank you, Your Worship. So we've spent a little bit of time prepping for our ice training, which is going to take place over the next few weekends. We've got a lot of new COVID protocols in place, and this will really change our processes, but I think it's going to be helpful for our staff to make sure they're safe. We've had 2 fires in the last week. One message to get out there is only one of them had a cleared hydrant. Really beneficial if you can clear out your hydrants, especially with all this snow we've been getting. Really delays our ability to fight that fire when we are digging out a hydrant to get a water supply. The one this morning that we had a nicely cleared out hydrant, and we were prepped and ready to go very quickly. Our recruit class of 2021 has started responding to the station to assist with accountability and cleanup, so that's beneficial. Nice to see them starting to come out. And we're continuing to train 3 nights a week with smaller groups, and that's continuing to go well.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ron Cooper.
Thank you, Worship. As Brian alluded to, some tendering. We've got 2 projects out there right now for tender. The 15th Avenue reconstruction project. And I've got another one out there, the rehabilitation of 21st Avenue storm sewer, the relining on that project. Both of those are out for tender right now. Obviously, the road crews and sidewalk machines had a good workout this morning after last night's snowfall. Still continuing to do some more cleanup there and some snow removal that's going to be occurring throughout this week. And looks like forecast, although it looks clear out there right now, the forecast is to be getting into some kind of wintry weather over the next week or so. So my crews are definitely going to be out there busy over the next week or so. That's the main activities for Public Works.
Good, thanks, Ron. All right, so that's all the updates for this evening. Thank you, everyone. So item 12 is planning and other meetings. And you'll notice we're now listing all of our meetings, and that's just for information for our residents or anyone who wants to view some of these meetings that would be on Facebook, or maybe they want to join and participate. So the first one, the Planning Advisory Committee meeting is Tuesday, March 9th at 5 p.m. So the Zoom invite is attached to these agendas. So if people want to get on the website and take a look, they'll find it. The Economic Development Committee is meeting on Wednesday, February 17th at 9 a.m. The Hanover Police Services Board is meeting Monday, February 22nd at 9:30. The Public Library Board is Thursday, the 25th at 6 p.m. Age Friendly Advisory Committee is Tuesday, March 16th at 2 p.m. And the Heritage Committee is meeting on March 18th at 10 a.m. Everybody's got different start dates. That's interesting. Start times, sorry. Dates to remember and announcements. The next Committee of the Whole meeting is Monday, March 1st at 7 p.m. And the next regular council meeting is Monday, March 15th at 7 p.m. So at this time, I'll ask, are there any notices of motion to be brought forward? Seeing none. Item 15, closed meeting. We do have a closed meeting this evening. The recommendation is that the Council of the Town of Hanover meet in closed session in order to address matters pertaining to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. So I need a mover and seconder to go into close. So I have Councillor Fitzsimmons and Councillor Cable, all in favor. So we are now going to meet in closed. Council, do you want a 5-minute break, or do you want to just, okay, 5 minutes?